Welcome to AETCM, the Emergency Medicine channel. Today we will be discussing about a pediatric patient who presented to ER with diarrhea. Can I begin, sir? A 2-year-old boy was brought to ER with complaints of loose stool since last 3 days. Initial 10-second assessment of PAT triangle. In the appearance, child's tone was normal. He was interacting well. Color was normal. Look and sound was also normal. His respiratory rate was 28 per minute, and he was not using any accessory muscles of respiration, and there was no nasal flaring, and air entry was bilaterally equal, and he was maintaining a saturation of 98% in room air.
So what is your initial impression?
At present, child is active, playful,
Okay.
not sick looking, so emergent intervention is not required at present.
Basically, you have a stable child.
Yes.
What is the age of the child?
2 years.
2-year-old child. PAT triangle, appearance of the child, size looks stable. Not irritable. Color of the child?
Normal. CRT is less than 2 seconds.
Okay.
And there was no mottling or cyanosis visualized.
Okay. So, when was the child brought into the emergency room?
He was brought around 5 p.m., sir.
5 p.m. Okay.
His airway was patent. There was no gurgling, hoarseness, or any pooling of secretion. Breathing, his respiratory rate was 28 per minute, and he was maintaining a saturation of 98% in room air. There was no use of accessory muscles, and air entry was bilaterally equal. Circulation, his heart rate was 102 per minute, and blood pressure was 90/60 millimeters of mercury.
Okay, just wait. Airway, you said patent. How will you assess the airway of a 2-year-old child?
Airway wise, we will be looking at the whether there is any oral secretions or anything, or there's an abnormal sounds, hoarseness, stridor, or any other particles, vomitus or food contents seen. If this child is able to, if the child is not able to phonate, if the child is able to coo and make some noise, playful and all, that means it is patent. Or else if this patient is having some gurgling sounds and all, that means airway is not patent.
Anything, sir?
I think in addition, any area of section, there will be respiratory distress signs also. Okay.
Then circulation, his CRT was less than 2 seconds, and all peripheral pulses were felt equally and bilaterally. Disability, child's
Circulation, what is the heart rate?
heart rate was 102.
Expected for 2-year-old?
Expected heart rate is coming between 70 to 110. So it is normal.
Within normal limits only. Blood pressure?
Blood pressure is 90/60. A target blood pressure will be, expected will be 90 plus age into 2. So it is coming around 94. And anything less than 70 plus age into 2, that is less than 74, is considered as hypotension.
Okay, so this child doesn't have any
hypotension.
no hypotension, airway, breathing, circulation, fine. Disability?
Disability GCS is 15/15, and pupils were 2 millimeter reactive.
2-year-old child, how will you assess the GCS?
Yes, sir. So, eye opening in adult and children, it is same only, and movements also it is same. Only changes in the verbal output. So, if the child is able to coo actively, then that we will be giving a score of 5. And if the child is irritable, and if the irritable and crying, we will be giving a score of 4. And if the child is crying only to pain, then we will giving a score of 3. If the child is only moans is there to pain, then 2, and if no response, 1.
Okay, so that is one of the normal routine adult will not be able to do that in a child. Or simple thing, you can go for an AVPU score. If you have any doubt in your mind, alert, verbal, painful, or unresponsive. So alert, AVPU, that should be fine. When you don't remember an pediatric GCS, you can refer and come back, but obviously you can just, for the initial assessment, you can go with the AVPU assessment. That is more than enough.
Temperature was 98°F, and GRBS was 78 and, for this patient. So,
why a GRBS was assessed for this child?
Actually, this because this patient is having history of loose stools and reduced oral intake, as per history, we assess her. But in an active child, unnecessarily giving pain is not
it is not needed. Actually, checking GRS was not needed. Conscious oriented child, otherwise able to take orally in the ED. There is no other warning signs. You are not planning for any IV interventions at this point. There is no need of a GRBS to be tested unless and until you are having some other comorbidities in the background. there was any previous history of hypoglycemia or low birth weight, maybe infancy, that age group, maybe you can think of doing an GRBS. But this age, I don't think there is any need of doing any investigation for this child from whatever available history presentation that we have got.
Moving on to the ample history, patient doesn't have any allergies. Patient no past medical or surgical history, and child is not on any medication. Antenatal history was uneventful. Child was born through LACS because of non-progression of labor, and postnatal history was uneventful, and a child was developmentally normal child. Child is immunized till age, and at present child is able to run and is able to talk in half sentences.
Okay, so you said 2-year-old. What is correct months as per the month age of the child? It's 24 or 23 plus or minus. Any vaccination that is due or taken in recent past?
Vaccination till 1.5 years it is completed. 2 years some typhoid vaccine that was only suggested.
Okay, whether they have taken it, optional vaccines?
They have taken that, sir.
When was that taken?
At the age of 2 years. Now child is 2 years and 2 months.
2 years and 2 months. So there is no history of vaccination in the recent past.
Recently no vaccine.
2 months back they have done a vaccination. Okay. So why that history is important here?
Post-vaccination side effects.
They can just come with a post-vaccination diarrhea or post-vaccination fever. This is a very common presentation. So that history, unless and until we are not asking, we can easily miss that history. Should ideally ask the parents to bring the immunization card, and you should cross-check whether they have given. Maybe the parents would have not remembering exactly what has happened. You can just cross-check with the immunization card whether the every event that has happened is after vaccination or it is before. Something we will get from that history. And also, some child is presenting with diarrhea, as you said. Definitely, if they are given the rotavirus and all those things, we will be able to know. So the majority of the normal virus infection is via rota. So whether they have covered and all, we can have an idea about it.
This child had multiple episodes of loose stool since last 3 days, 7 to 8 episodes a day, but now it was not associated with any fever or blood or mucus in stool, and there was no history of vomiting. Child complained of intermittent diffuse abdomen pain, but child was since he had this pain, he was not taking much food, but he was able to take. There was history of outside food intake prior to the onset of symptoms. He was admitted in nearby hospital, and he was already treated with IV fluids and then referred here for further management.
Okay, so any idea about the presentation in that hospital?
No, sir. We have no idea.
There was no idea, because IV hydration requiring means there is significant severe dehydration. And right now, when we are assessing the child, there is no evidence of any dehydration. So ideally, we should be able to get those referral notes, and we will be able to know what was the patient's status. If it was just some dehydration and they have aggressively treated that dehydration, we doesn't know. But routinely, if the child is able to take orally, there is no need of an IV hydration to be given for this child. Can you elaborate that history? What was the loose stools after taking food from outside?
There was a history of outside food intake on the previous day. Next day morning, the child was complaining of abdominal discomfort.
What was the food item that they have given?
Food item, some masala dosha.
Okay, so can be an now the question arises is, after the food intake, when was the diarrhea onset? It is just like within 24 hours. 24 hours. Whether it is an infective cause or a non-infective cause. Child never had any fever. Maybe they would have given some ingredient that is not getting tolerated to the child also. Maybe they would have started given first time for the child. Maybe some ingredients in that food item that they have taken out it would not have tolerated. Because of that, the child would have developed the diarrhea. It might not be an infective cause at all. And if at all it is an infective, within 12 to 24 hours, what all organism you can anticipate?
In case of Bacillus cereus, these organism and all, Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, these organism manifestation will be in the first 5 hours. In other conditions like toxin induced and all, there will be an incubation period, like E. coli, Shiga toxin, and there will be some incubation period, and manifestations might be after some 12 hours.
So the classical viral things will happen after somewhere around 12. The Bacillus cereus, the classical description of the fried rice, and all those things was there, but now the incidence have decline, but in certain you have to be very specific type of restaurants. Now very rarely in India, but maybe outside India we need to ask specifically what type of food consumption they had, because the practices differ. So Bacillus cereus is very common in certain geographical areas, so that again fried rice consumption of food, and after that they are coming with history of diarrhea, you need to check that. So what is the most common pathological organism that you can consider for a 2-year-old child coming with an acute diarrhea?
So viral infection is most common, and in that rotavirus is the most common.
Whether the child has taken vaccine against rota?
Yes, in the 1 year of age it was taken.
If rotavirus vaccination is taken, it has got very good prevention. It has got very good coverage. So very unlikely it is due to be a rotavirus. Then what are the other?
Then bacterial infection.
Then other virus infection.
Coronavirus is there. Then norovirus.
Norovirus, even adenovirus can also present with diarrhea. And with the background of COVID, always we need to consider COVID as also one of the differential viral infection. But from whatever be the history that you are suggesting, there is no fever. There is after some new food intake, the child have developed this. Most looks like something related to the food items. Some malabsorption may be the reason for the diarrhea. Sir, anything add on, sir?
So, how is the urine output?
Normal, sir.
So, because in such cases, simultaneously enlighten upon the output. Okay. No problem.
So in children, there can be viral causes as we discussed. Then bacterial causes can be there. Bacterial can be most commonly E. coli is there. Then Campylobacter jejuni, then Yersinia, then cholera. These are the other bacterial infection. Then in children, sometimes there can be allergy, food allergy, or some lactose intolerance, soybean intolerance can be there, or any other congenital problems like Hirschsprung's disease, or any toxic
Continue.
that can be there, or irritable bowel diseases can also be there.
So the one thing, infectious cause and non-infectious cause. Remember, regarding your non-infectious cause, we have dealt regarding one malabsorption. You said regarding irritable bowel syndrome, and first onset of irritable bowel syndrome unlikely, because previous history something would have been there. The next thing you have dealing with any other surgical abdomen, any other acute appendicitis. But again, fever is not there. There is no tenderness. There was some diffuse tenderness on examination. So acute appendicitis, it can be an urinary tract infection and associated with that. So we have to have a differential diagnosis. Also, if there is an associated vomiting also, you need to think in terms of another metabolic problems also. Maybe a presentation, some malabsorption, on top of that some head injury. The child had a fall and they can come with multiple episodes of vomiting. We are just thinking in terms of an infective cause, we can easily miss that also. But here there is no episode of vomiting, just diarrhea, something to do with the colon. So either it is a malabsorption, either it's an obstruction, or maybe an infection to the colon, or something surrounding the colon is only the pathology.
In children, even UTI and otitis media, all these things can also present as diarrhea.
The main thing is that the child had some otitis media and they have prescribed some antibiotics. And they can amoxicillin. The commonly used one is amoxicillin. Even for some children, even after taking paracetamol, they can have diarrhea. So we can't predict what is happening to a child. So
it was furious diarrhea, like a constipation, then something you might have given to relieve that.
Yes, that all history is very important, because some Ayurvedic preparation, some homemade preparation, something they can give for digestion, they can give, and they can come with just like this. So unless and until you are not very sure regarding your treating your infection, our aim is to treat the dehydration. So whatever be the cause, as an ED physician, our aim, priority in this child is dehydration, correction of dehydration. At present, there is no evidence of any dehydration. We need not do any intervention at all at this point of time. Maybe just give some time, observe the child, and maybe you can just give some oral feeds and see how the child is responding. And if the child is responding well, the child can be easily discharged. There is no need of any further investigation also. Unless and until that is again and again coming, then you need a detailed stool examination and all those things.
So on examination, child's weight is 10 kg, expected was 12 kg. Actually, when we are looking the examination from head to foot, we have to look the anterior fontanelle first. We have to look whether it is sunken or not. In case
2-year-old?
But since this child, it is fused, we are not looking that. Child's eyes were not sunken, and child was having adequate tears. Oral cavity was wet and there was no dry tongue. Then in the other examination, child was not thirsty enough and skin turgor when it was checked, that was also normal. Then we will have to inquire about the urine output history. Then in the vitals also we will have to look the heart rate, pulse, the peripheral pulses and the respiratory rate. All this will be altered in severe dehydration. So we can classify the children based on no dehydration, some dehydration and severe dehydration. So this child comes under no dehydration category. If there was some if the child is having some dehydration, a child might be having some dryness of the eyes, dry tongue will be there.
Thirst can be there.
So this child will be irritable but the child will be thirsty. But if there is severe dehydration, child will be very lethargic and child will not be thirsty enough to drink that. So in severe dehydration, ideally we will have to place an IV cannula and give IV.
Even they can present with shock. In severe dehydration. Severe dehydration can lead on to the shock, and that will be another presentation. So here the child doesn't have any evidence of dehydration. So no dehydration, some dehydration. We can manage some dehydration easily. We can manage with oral dehydration solutions, or whatever the child is able to tolerate orally, you can easily give. And the most important thing is that no need of investigation them further, and no need of unwanted IV access for this child who can tolerate oral feeds. If there is only some dehydration. Severe dehydration, as you said, all other markers, the child is comatose, there is no urine output, decreased urine output, there are other skin turgor and everything is supportive of that, then you can definitely need to place an IV line and use to start rehydrating the child. So what will be the fluid of choice during that time?
Yes, sir. Severe dehydration.
So we can start from hypotension.
Yes, sir.
We can start from hypotension to severe dehydration. So you have a child with hypotension and diarrhea with hypotension.
So in severe dehydration, it is of two types, that is with hypertension, without hypertension.
Yes.
So if it is without hypertension, we will be giving 20 ml per kg per hour. We will be giving for 6 hours.
The child is having hypotension.
If hypotension, then we will have to give it as a bolus dose. 20 ml per kg should be given as a bolus dose.
How much bolus we can give like that?
Up to 60 ml per kg can be given. 3 boluses can be given.
Suppose there is a hypotension, that calculated deficit is approximately 100 ml per kg deficit will be there in the body. 100 ml per kg deficit will be there. So even if you are planning after your IV bolus, you need to calculate that deficit also, and you need to add on to your maintenance fluid also. Then only the total fluid will be corrected. So here our idea is only hydration. Then energy part is separate, so that you need to consider it separately, and all the electrolyte parts also you need to take care separately. So now you said 20 ml per kg you started, you can go up to like 20 ml per kg, 20 ml per kg 3 times or maybe even 4 times, unless and until the child doesn't have any major cardiac issues. If the cardiac issues, we will start with around 5 to 10 ml per kg. Then depending upon the lung repetitions, you can decide upon that. And if you have available echo machine, that is very easy. But otherwise, you can go with 5 to 10 ml per kg with the urine output and lung repetitions. You can decide on the further fluid management. So after 20 ml per kg, what will you do?
We will have to reassess the child.
No, what else you need to start simultaneously also?
Maintenance fluid we should.
How will you decide upon the maintenance fluid?
We will be using the whole day agar formula. For the first 10 kg, we will be taking 4 ml per kg. So 40. If the child is having 30 kg, for first 10, we will be it will be coming around 40. 4 into 10. Then next 10 kg, we will have to give 2 ml per kg. So 20 ml, and next 10 kg we will have to give 1 ml per kg. So totally, if it is a 30 kg child, it will 40 plus.
So it's a 10 kg child. How much you wanted to start?
This child only 40 ml per hour we have to
40 ml per hour we need to calculate. Eitherwise, you can calculate the total requirement and divide it by 24, or you can calculate, as you said, hourly requirement also you can calculate. So 40 ml per hour, that is the maintenance fluid. You have to calculate the deficit also. So deficit will be, as I said, it will be 100 ml per kg. So you need to add on with the maintenance fluid. And if the child is having further episodes of diarrhea also, that fluid also you need to add on.
So, so basically, when we are classifying, no dehydration means only less than 50 ml per kg is lost. Some means 50 to 100, and severe means more than 100. So we will have to give the bolus dose and the maintenance dose. Then we will have to, with each diarrhea, we will have to supplement the fluids or ORS if the child is able to drink. So with each diarrhea, we will have to give 10 ml per kg should be given, and with each after each vomiting, we will have to give 2 ml per kg should be given, and also with these we should continue patients feeding. Means if at all this child is breastfeeding child, we should continue breastfeeding, and other food also should be given to the child.
Okay. So what are the you can so-called the red flags? So this child is coming to me, so I need to be more conscious. Like there is a high chance that this patient can have severe dehydration, or there is a high possibility there can be an anticipated complication. So which are the group of patients that you can term it as a red flag or a high risk group of patients?
If this patient is having history-wise, if there is a history of fever, blood and mucus in stools, a history of immunocompromised child, or a child who is not vaccinated, and in the presentation-wise, if the patient is lethargic with a low GCS with features of severe dehydration and hypotension, and patients might be tachypneic also.
Okay. Suppose it's a younger age group, like for example 6 months. So their malnutrition, low birth weight, breastfeeding. When was the breastfeeding given? How the feeding of that's all comes as the risk factors also. Suppose there is the last which one?
Preterm baby.
Yeah, preterm baby. There are all high chance of high risk group of patients. Fine.
This is all about the fluids, sir. Antiemetics, if at all the child is vomiting to our fluids or our oral rehydration, that is not a contraindication for oral rehydration therapy. We can continue the rehydration therapy. But if at all required child is vomiting continuously, we can plan on giving ondansetron 0.15 mg per kg. That can be given. Usually anti-secretory agents and anti-diarrheal agents are contraindicated. Drugs like loperamide and all can cause HUS and also.
The role of zinc?
Zinc is actually used to heal the intestine. So zinc is can be given as 10 mg is given in children less than 6 months and 20 mg given in more than 6 months. It should be given for 14 days.
So zinc is one agent that has got some evidences in child with acute diarrheal diseases, but routinely one hydration, energy. So what is the fluid that you will select?
Fluid selection, we can give dextrose containing fluids.
Initial resuscitation, there is no doubt, normal saline or regular light. Or else, if you want to do the energy requirement, go for the dextrose.
So initially we will be giving normal saline, and after that we will be adding dextrose to that, depending on.
And also you can add maybe some amount of potassium, depending upon whatever be the potassium deficit. Okay. So this child, we doesn't need to do anything for this child. We can just observe the child, maybe a couple of oral rehydration solution from the if he's tolerating well,
we can
oral rehydration. If the child is quite okay, you can tell the mother what to be done and what are the warning signs needed to be sent to the mother, that what time she should bring back the child to the hospital. So if the child is using his nappy when it is not getting wet, you are not changing the nappy very frequently. All those things you can tell to the mother, and warning signs you can tell them, and you can ask them to come back. If any episode of fever, whether they are seeing any blood in the stools, these are the time they should be coming back to the ER. The other group of patients, definitely they should be admitted and they should be treated. But you need to start any investigation needed to be sent for this child? No.
This child no need. But otherwise, if there are some warning signs and if there is some blood in stools, history of fever and history of travel to an endemic area, then we will have to send for the CBC, CRP can be sent. Electrolytes should be monitored.
Cultures?
Stool culture is not that specific.
Blood culture?
Blood culture and stool culture not that specific, yes. But it is not indicated also. If at all required, only we will be sending.
Antibiotics
as such, there is no role, but in case of any traveler's diarrhea or case of other...
you have a bloody diarrhea, definitely it might be required. Otherwise, routinely it is not needed. Otherwise, you have got any other markers that there is a suggestion of a bacterial infection, you can think of starting antibiotic. But the key message will be routine acute diarrheal diseases. Rehydration is the only thing that is needed. No need of any antibiotics. Sometimes the antibiotics can worsen the scenario. Again, regarding probiotics, like lactobacillus, what is the indication? In children, it is actually not recommended. In adults, we will be using, but in children, it's not recommended. The only thing what is can given is zinc. There is only one evidence that has been shown is with zinc. Sir, question, sir.
No responses.
Yes.
Okay.
And prevention is the other technique. Proper hand hygiene after playing, and childs will be playing in the
Maybe this age group, maybe they would have started toilet training. Unlikely. 2 years. Whether we have to have that clear-cut history, training, everything need to be hand hygiene and vaccination. If not taken against rotavirus, we should encourage them to take. And always keep in mind we are not missing any non-infectious causes. Don't just go behind the infectious cause of diarrhea with vomiting, especially. Just think about the non-infectious causes also. Suppose the key message here, what we learned here is that treating the dehydration is the cornerstone in any acute diarrheal diseases. Assess the child, see the what type of dehydration child is having. Some dehydration, oral dehydration solution is more than enough. No need to prick the child unwantedly. And if there is severe dehydration with hypotension, without hypotension, we can have two categories. So with hypotension, go ahead with the standard 20 ml per kg, and maximum you can go to 60 ml per kg. And on the other side, you treat the deficit, whatever be the fluid deficit, and give the maintenance fluid and add on to the each episode of diarrhea and vomiting. As you said, 2 ml per kg for all the vomiting and loose stools you add on, and usually within 24 to 48 hours the child should be back to normal. That is a normal due course of an acute diarrheal diseases. So another thing is that you should, when you are sending back the child home, tell them regarding the warning signs, and also you can tell them how to make the homemade ORS. The 1 liter of water you can add how much?
ORS with ORS solution can be added with the sachet and the 1 liter of water.
No,
or,
that is the homemade ORS. You can make
sugar
it
and salt.
Sugar and salt. So approximately 1 teaspoon or a tablespoon of sugar you need to add, and 1 pinch of salt you can add on, and you can ask the child after each episode of diarrhea or vomiting, and if there is any signs, any fever, any blood in stools appear, bring back the child, get them admitted. So that's it. Yeah. Anything else?
No, sir.
Nothing. Sir.
All right.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you.